Hi, Wizards Code here. 3 hours to a first-person shooter like this. Pretty basic, but 3 hours. What more do you want? This is using Neo FPS. It has all of the weapons, all of the graphics, everything you see in here, and a lot more. So in the game, you have to get rid of the reds, save the blues. But you can't hide up on top of these things all the time. You'll end up running out of ammo. So you have to jump down, grab the ammunition, reload, and then find a way of taking out those reds without the turrets taking you out and taking out all of your friends. You keep messing around though, eventually you'll die. Let's get going. So here we are in a completely fresh Unity project. Now Neo FPS comes with this fantastic hub that gives you links into the documentation and all sorts of things. And it has a really cool feature that I've not seen anywhere else. Let's go into scene setup and click this template scene. And it highlights it over there on the left in the projects. It has links like this to almost everything that you could possibly want as you're getting started. Fantastic resource. So click that. Pings it over in project, so then you can just very quickly go and open that up, and let's take a look at this template scene. So this is a really basic scene. There's nothing in here except you and your weapons. Now Neo FPS isn't about high quality graphics and things like that. It gives you some great range of low poly weapons that you can work with. Doesn't suit everybody, but don't worry, I have videos on how you can replace all these. The key thing is Neo FPS is all about providing everything you need to build an FPS. So let's do that. So the first thing we're going to want to do is take that template scene and save it in our own project. So we'll create a folder for our project, create a folder for our scenes, and then save the project itself as the first 3 hours. So now that we have that saved, we can start creating our first enemy. So we're going to create a simple capsule here. I'm going to assume that you know a little bit about Unity, but nothing about Neo FPS. So create yourself a capsule, make it stand up in the scene, and then we're going to add a couple of components to it that are needed by Neo FPS. The first one is a basic health manager, and this decides essentially, is the character still alive? So we're going to click add component, type basic health manager, and there we have it. So you see it has a health of 100, a max health of 100, and it's not going to damage itself. Damage, we need a damage handler, so let's search for a damage handler component and add that. This is just the basic one and it'll work. I can now shoot it and it is being damaged, but you can't actually see that. If you go into the inspector though, you can see here that health has gone down to 0. We've not told it what to do when health hits 0. We also haven't got any effects happening here when the bullets hit. So let's change that first. So to change that, we add simple surface component to the enemy, and then we can select the surface. It's a whole load come, you can add your own in. We're going to select metal solid here, and let's drop in and shoot it, and now you see sparks coming off. Now, as I mentioned, there's a whole load of them. Let's change it over to flesh and shoot, and now we have a blood splatter. You can create your own effects dead easy. Not going to do that in this video though. So now we need a script to tell the character what to do when it dies. So we'll create a scripts folder, and inside there we're going to create a new script, and we're going to call that AI character controller. And this is going to have just a single method called die, and that will be fired when the health manager detects that the character has died. And all we're going to do initially is destroy the game object after a quarter second. So now we'll drag that onto our character object, and then inside the character on the basic health manager we have this on is alive changed. We drop our script into there and then select the die method. And that's it. Hit play, hit it twice, not dead, hit it 2 more, dead, disappears. Great stuff. So it'd be a bit boring if the character just stood there and waited for you to shoot them. So here's some code that once given a navmesh agent and baking the navmesh. If you don't know what that means, there's loads of tutorials, go look it up. It will use those and move the character around randomly. Very basic, but it does the job for our simple 3-hour game. Now let's improve the graphics for our character a little. Simple stuff, let's just give him a body and a head. And what that's going to enable us to do is have different damage in different places. In other words, we'll be able to have headshots. To do that, once we have our head, we add a new damage handler to the head and we give it a multiplier, in this case 2, and mark it as critical. We'll also have a simple surface so that we have some effects happening on that head shot as well. And in play mode, we can see it doesn't quite work. We're leaving the head behind. And that's because we still have all of the components on the body, but that is no longer the root of the object. So we need to move the nav mesh agent, the basic health handler, and the AI controller script onto the root of our enemy. Once we've moved them over, we'll need to rewire those components. And once we've done that, it'll work just as it did before, but this time the head will go with it. And because the head goes with it, we can now do headshots. Notice it only took 2 shots. So it's a bit unfair now. We need to do something where the AI can fight back. So let's nip into the Neo FPS hub again, and we'll go into the demo scenes. And this scene here, the demo facility, if you wait to the end of this video, you'll see a trailer for Neo FPS, which will show you around this place and show you many of the features that are available. Not all, but many. We're using a tiny fraction of them in this video. But up here, as you hear all the different footsteps for different surfaces and things all built in, you find this. It's a little turret that detects a player and fires back. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our enemies drop those turrets. So we need to add a few fields to our AI character controller. The first one will hold the prefab for the turret itself. And then the second one will hold the probability chance of dropping one of these in each frame. We're going to put that in a range between 0 and 1. We'll set a default of 0.01 and see how that works out. Then still in the AI character controller, we're going to add this code into the update method. And this is simply going to generate a random number, check to see whether it's below the turret chance, and instantiate a turret if it is. Easy stuff. And in play mode, this is what we have. Dropping the turrets, and it will detect us, I hope. Yep, there we go, and we can shoot it. Awesome. So now let's create another AI. We're going to create a friend, so we'll duplicate the enemy and rename it friend. Just give it a different starting position. We're going to want to be able to differentiate, so let's create a materials folder and we'll create a blue and a red material. Excellent, there we go, and apply those onto our model. And once we have those, we're going to stop the blue model from dropping turrets. Later on, we'll have them drop some ammo and things like that, but for now, we'll just stop them dropping turrets. So I'm going to do a little refactoring. I'm going to change the fields from turret prefab to drop prefab and drop chance rather than turret chance. And in the code itself, I'm going to check that the drop prefab is not null before trying to instantiate. Finally, we just have to drop the turret back into the controller. Okay, so now let's keep score. When we kill an enemy, we're going to get a certain amount of points, and when we kill a friend, we're going to lose a certain amount of points. In order to do that, we need to differentiate between the two types of AI. So we're going to add a tag for enemy and a tag for friend, and we'll mark up each of those AIs appropriately. Now, to keep track of score, we're going to need a game manager script. So in our scripts folder, let's create a new script, and we'll call that Simple Game Manager. This isn't a mono behavior, it is a singleton. Here's the code for creating it. And inside Game Manager, we will create an onAIDeath method, which will take an AI character controller as a parameter. And this is going to check whether or not the AI is an enemy by comparing the tag. And if it is, it'll add 10 to the score. And if it isn't, it'll take 50 off the score. So in our AI character controller, we're going to need a reference to that game manager, which we'll grab in awake. And then we'll use that in the die method to call the onAIDeath method on the manager, which will add the score. So then we need a UI element that will display the score. So that's easy. Use a TextMesh Pro instance, and then a tiny little script that will update the text on every update. Not the best optimization, but we'll worry about that later. And in play mode, we score 10 for killing the enemy up there in the top left. And if we take a headshot on this guy, not that it'll change the score, but make sure I hit, And yep, there we go. We've lost 50 points. Perfect. So now we want more than just one of each type of character in the scene. So let's create a new mono behavior called spawner. And this is just a really simple spawner. It's got a prefab, the number that you want to create, the radius it's going to come in, and then the layer mask of things it should avoid. And then we simply generate a random point on a circle and spawn in an object at that place. Now we just create an object in our scene, call it enemy spawner, drop on our spawner script and drag it into that our enemy prefab. And then we'll duplicate it, rename it friend spawner, and replace a prefab with friends. That's it. And now when we spawn, we have loads of friends, loads of enemies all over the map. Starting to get there. So now let's put some obstacles in so it's not quite so easy to pick off the enemy. Inside Neo FPS there's a whole load of props that you can use. For this I'm just going to use these containers here. Just search for container. I'm going to throw them in at random around this level. I'm not going to worry too much about it for now. We'll do some proper level design later. The key here is to just get it working. Now currently Neo FPS is unaware of these obstacles, so let's put them on the environment rough layer, which will put them into the optimized physics calculations inside of Neo FPS. We also want to make sure the AI are aware of them, so we're going to put them into the nav mesh as non-walkable objects and rebake the nav mesh. Once we've done that, you can see the AI are not going to wander through these objects. And here it is in the game. Looking pretty good. We're starting to see a game emerge. So let's add in some tactics, shall we? Let's double the height of one of these containers by just placing two on top of each other. And then we're going to go and grab a ladder that comes from one of the other demo scenes in Neo FPS. And we're going to drag that in and place it against this double height container. What this is going to do is allow us to have the player climb up onto the top, and up there they'll be relatively safe, be able to see what's going on. We're going to need to add a motion controller to our character, which we'll do in a moment, but we need to change the property key to contact ladder 2, which is what it's set to in the demo scene. So to add that motion graph to our character, I'm going to go in and find the prefab, which is the default out of Neo FPS at the moment. So I'm going to duplicate that and give it a name that's unique to my 3-hour game here. Once I have my own character to use, I can drop that into the simple spawner to ensure that it is used in the game itself. Next up, I want to set up this motion graph. Now, what is that? Well, it's set here in the motion controller. The motion graph is a really advanced way of controlling the way the character moves. It's outside the scope of this video to go into detail. We're just going to use one of the defaults that comes with the demo scene for the climbable ladders. But you really need to check this motion graph out. It is unique, as far as I'm aware, amongst all of the assets, and it's very powerful. So let's have a look at what we can do with it. So let's lock the inspector, and then we're going to go and find the ladder demo scene inside of Neo FPS. And inside of there, we will find a motion graph setup that we can reuse here. That way we don't have to worry about how to make the character climb the ladder because it's already done for us. We can then later go in and look at exactly how it works. But in play, this is what happens. We can now climb ladders. And once we're up here, we're relatively safe. We can pick off the enemies. Okay, it's getting easy for the player again, so let's toughen it up. Neo FPS comes with a complete inventory system, and by default the character has plenty of ammo available to them. But if we go into the character as we are doing here and find the inventory, here it is, we can see where those inventory items are. Those top ones are all ammo. So let's remove all of those to reduce the ammo available. So now when we run out of ammo in the gun, we have no ammo left. So the character can get up high, but they're going to have to come back down to get ammo. Problem is now there's no ammo being spawned, so let's fix that. This is easy to do because our AIs are already dropping stuff. So I've locked the friends AI here, and I've gone into Neo FPS and I've found the sample pickups for all of the different types of ammunition. Just drop them into our script for character controller, hit play, and it works. This really highlights how Neo FPS works. It tries to give you examples of how you would want to do almost everything, and consequently, you can go in and reverse engineer it if you need to. Now you might have noticed that the shotgun there sounded really weedy. Part of that's because we're against metal and it's just got this ping sound, but part of it is that it's not got explosions, and we want explosions, right? So here I'm duplicating the firearm that comes by default with Neo FPS so that I can make some changes to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a different type of shell to it, which makes them explode on contact. And I'm doing this because it makes it really easy to see one of the massive advantages of Neo FPS over any other FPS on the store. It is so modular. You can change just about everything about every kind of weapon in here, and of course create completely new weapons. Not only is it highly modular, but the interface provides all these helpers to help you get going. Here I'm adding an explosion ammo effect. It's just a drop down. If I add my own versions of these in, those will appear in this drop down as well. It's fantastically put together. So I'm going to select the pooled explosion effect. And you can see straight away there's something wrong. I've got this big red marker, and I can scroll down quickly and I find where the problem is, another red marker, and it tells me precisely what I've not got right. So I'm going to go and I'm going to find a pooled explosion object. Search for explosion, go, okay, 360 small, let's see what that looks like. It really is that simple. That said, the documentation is fantastic too. What an asset. Now if you play at this point, you'll still be having the original bullet ammo effect because they're both there. You can actually have multiple types of ammo and load them in independently, but I just want to have one type, so I'm going to remove the standard bullet ammo effect. But as soon as I do that, I see another big red warning. I've got a problem. Not selected the right kind of ammo settings in the shared pool ammo. Look how easy this is. It handholds you all the way. I love this asset, I really do. Just in case you're still not convinced about how modular this weapon system is, let's change the damage type. We're still using bullets as a default damage type here, so let's change it over to explosion. Let's turn off the default, turn on explosion, and this is what you get. Bang! Big exploding bullets. How awesome is that? Okay, so it's a bit unfair again. We've got exploding bullets now. So let's beef up these turrets a little bit. By default, they only attack the player. But what I'd like to do is make them attack the AI as well. So I've duplicated it, as I always do when I'm going to make changes. Don't want upgrades to Neo FPS to overwrite my changes. Made my own version of that, the one that the enemies drop. And then I go into the friend prefab and change the layer to AI visibility. And on the turret, change the layers that it detects to include AI visibility. And now the turrets are attacking the friends as well as the player. Okay, let's do some level design now. The first thing I want to do is make this climbable container, the one with the ladder on, a single object, so that will make it easier for me to work with as I'm creating the level. So let's put both the containers and the ladder into a single hierarchy. And once I've done that, it's just a case of arranging the containers on the level to create something challenging. What I've decided to do is create double height containers all over the map with a few choke points, so some open spaces leading into a number of choke points. And this is going to encourage the player to leap from container to container, but if they fall, they could be in an uncontrolled space. This also opens up the possibility to use one of the other features of Neo FPS that I'm not going to get to in this 3 hours, but almost certainly will in this kind of game if I keep moving on it. And that is the parkour system. So you can do like wall running and things like that. It's a fantastic system. Take a look at it in the publisher's videos. And here it is as we start to come together into a complete game. We climb up, nothing there at the minute, but in the distance over there, let's pull out the sniper. Let's take out a few of those while we can. We can hear in the background there that some turrets have started to fire off. So now we need some sizzle. We need something to really pop when things happen. So we're going to start out by adding an explosion effect on death of an AI. So here we see the pooled object that is going to hold the explosion that will be spawned. That prefab is provided by Neo FPS, as you would expect. And all we have to do is use the pool manager, which again is part of Neo FPS, to pull one of those objects out of the pool, and our AI will simply explode. Let's have a look. So next up, we need a way for the player to stay alive. And we have a health system in Neo FPS, so naturally we have health pickups and medipacks and so on. So here I'm finding the health pickup, and I'm just dropping it into our drop prefabs for our friends. And now our friends will drop health for us. There's some over there, you see? Simple as that. So I've been using the default post-processing that comes with Neo FPS, and that's kind of nice, but it's, it's specific for the demos that come with Neo FPS. So I'm just mucking about a little bit here, trying to provide a little bit more mood in the lighting. This is all standard Unity stuff, nothing special, so I'm making it go very fast. The next thing to do is also not really unique to Neo FPS. We need some kind of score to let you know how far you're progressing in the game. So to do that, we're going to show the count of enemies and the count of friends that are remaining in the game, as well as the score. And so what we're going to need to do is register each spawn with the game manager, which we can do with code in our simple game manager, but also in our spawner. And it's really easy to do. Once an object gets spawned, it registers itself with the game manager. And then when an object is killed, we remove it from the list of objects, the list of enemies, list of friends that are available in the game manager. Of course, we also need to be able to display that in the UI. Again, standard Unity stuff, so I'm going very quickly here. The code you need is in the score UI manager, and you can see that on screen. With the last few minutes I had in my allotted 3 hours, I did a little bit of balancing, and this is what you have. 3 hours edited down into less than 25 minutes. You can create this game and finish it off in your own style. It's a fantastic asset, but in this game I've barely scratched the surface of the features that are available. So here is the Neo FPS trailer. Take a look at how awesome it is.
Noise you couldn't quite locate or explain. Couldn't quite locate or explain. Noise you couldn't quite locate. Explain.